Tonight's congressional hearing with Secretary of State Antony Blinken was supposed to get to the bottom of Biden's awful Afghanistan evacuation. But that didn't happen. Blinken is a master of dodging questions, so we didn't get many answers. However, one thing did happen. Congressman Scott Perry went off script and asked the Secretary of State about Hunter Biden. Watch.
How long was your recent interview with the FBI, and was it a deposition?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring.
Are you saying that you have not had a recent interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I'm happy to take that up with you offline.
Did the State Department turn over documents to the FBI related to Hunter Biden, Burisma, and or the Blue State Strategies Corporation?
You'll have to.
So you have no knowledge of this. You have had no. You don't. Are you saying you have not had an interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
It would not be appropriate for me to comment in a public forum on any legal proceedings that the department
I'm not asking you to
cooperate.
I'm not asking you to comment on the legal proceedings. I'm just asking if you've been interviewed by the FBI since becoming Secretary of State.
Again, I'm not going to comment one way or another on any legal proceedings or not that may or may not have happened.
Have you sought to...
Let me remind the gentleman that the topic of this hearing is Afghanistan. That's what we're...
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, but the Secretary generally refuses to answer questions about Afghanistan, so I just figured we'd talk about something he should be intimately familiar with. Have you sought to alter any of your testimony from last year's Senate investigation regarding this topic? Mr. Secretary.
Gentleman's time has expired.
The man asking those questions was Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, and he is now to react. Congressman, it is very clear that the Secretary of State was caught off guard. He was stumbling. So what were you getting at right there? Why did you choose that line of questioning? What do you know?
Well, Lawrence, first of all, thank you very much. It's better to offer no excuse than a series of bad excuses. And that hearing certainly proves to the American people that we have a poor excuse for Secretary of State and an even worse one for President of the United States. But with that being said, listen, what we're trying to do is, obviously Blinken is well coached. He wouldn't come in person. He's on video, so he can pre-script all the questions. We can't. The screen goes dark when we're talking, so he has time to see our questions and hear our questions and then get an answer from his advisors before he actually answers. And he wasn't going to answer any questions realistically on the horrific failure of Afghanistan. So I thought I'd talk to him about something that I knew was reported, that he had conversations with the FBI and that potentially they'd called him back in because something's not matching up regarding his relationship with Hunter Biden when he was Assistant Secretary of State. I think it's something that the American people ought to know. I question this Secretary of State's judgment and his credibility regarding Afghanistan and everything else. And the fact that he's had a close relationship with Hunter Biden when he was Assistant Secretary of State regarding events in Ukraine, that's very concerning to the American people.
So, Congressman,
and I think we ought to know what it is.
I want to slow you down for a second because I think this is important for the audience to know. Are you saying that you know for a fact that he met with the FBI regarding his relationship with Hunter Biden? What do you know specifically about that?
Well, that's the report I'm getting, but I think that the press, quite honestly, ought to ask him. Like I asked him, and he wouldn't answer. I can't confirm it. I'm not in the FBI, and I'm not Secretary Blinken. There's one guy that can can confirm it, and that's Secretary Antony Blinken.
Do you know anything about the relationship between Hunter Biden and the secretary? Because a lot of Americans are trying to figure out, why is he contacting the Deputy Secretary of State? Would he be able to do that if he wasn't Joe Biden's son? What is the reason for that connection?
Well, there are emails out there in open source that show the conversation was not about, as I understand it, what Antony Blinken said, which was Beau Biden. I don't think they're about Beau Biden. I think they're about issues of Ukraine and other maybe projects that Hunter Biden was working on, and that's per the emails that are already out there.
Are you suggesting it was Burisma?
I can't suggest anything. I want the Secretary of State. He wants to talk to me offline. I suggest he talks to the American people and let all of us know what he was talking to Hunter Biden about.
Has he called you, Congressman? Because he talked about that in the hearing, that he was willing to talk offline. So has there been any coordination between your office to sit down with the secretary to get some answers to that? Because he didn't want the American people to hear about that today.
No, he did not. You could tell by the look on his face. He didn't deny it, right? But he hasn't called me about it. Maybe he's calling you, Lawrence, but he hasn't talked to me about it.
Do you plan on reaching back to his office, since he said under oath today that he was willing to do that? Do you plan on reaching out to his office to get those answers?
We certainly do. But here again, Lawrence, it's important not only that members of Congress, and remember, we're just representatives of the people. The important thing is that the people have this information. We need to know whether this guy is credible, whether his judgment is sound. And just remember, he just presided. He and President Biden presided over the worst foreign policy and national security failure in United States history. I think there's reason to question everything that he's been involved in.
Congressman, why did your chairman cut you off in the middle of that hearing? Because it seemed like when you were getting to the facts of the story and he started to shuffle a little bit, that the chairman jumped in. Is that procedure in the House?
Well, what's procedure is by Democrats, and you look, they all close ranks, no matter how horrific the policy is. 13 dead Marines, America being, our reputation being dragged across the world stage. They all close ranks and do whatever's necessary to support the failed policy and their president, Joe Biden. They don't care about the American people. They care about the power that they have, and they're not going to let anybody assail their Secretary of State, on an open mic. So, he just had to cut it off.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to keep digging into the story.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.